BIMM, and presenting a brief introduction of Mr. Ajay Chaudhary. Ajay Chaudhary is an alumnus of Modern School and Hindu College, a university master's in sociology from JNU, and an MBA from FMS University of Delhi. He has over 21 years of experience in the HR domain. Sir has held leadership positions in HR in blue-chip organizations, cutting across industry verticals and domains within the HR function. His career started with a steel plant under SAIL, and he moved on to the corporate headquarters within a short span of 3 years. He subsequently worked at Zanza as corporate manager, with Birlasoft in the UK as Director Strategic Accounts in HR, and Head of Recruitment in India, as Head of HR Systems at Fidelity International, and as Head of HR for the Punjab Circle of Hutch, and with Dell International Services, where he held sequential responsibilities as Director Learning and Development and Director HRG. He had a 2-year stint as an entrepreneur where he helped a startup with pan-India processes on identification of raw talent and converting it to the employable category and assisting with final placement with global organization. He also set up an HR consultancy and outsourcing firm that helped organizations in the SME space deploy robust HR practices. Currently, he is working with SRF Group as Head Group HR, and he acts as Honorable Secretary to Delhi and NCR chapter of National HRD Network. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you before us as a part of the National HR Meet BIMM.
Am I supposed to go there?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm good. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that. The energy levels, especially after lunch, are a little low, so I know I'm running with a handicap. But hopefully, as someone said, that we'll make it exciting. So the exciting bit will come from you. You have to ask the right questions. You have to take as much as you can away from this session. I commit not to speak for more than 10 minutes, if I can stretch it that far. I know the kind of stuff that I'm going to say has been said earlier and will be repeated in the next 2 days. But hopefully, through that reiteration, there are some things that sink home and help some of you out there. We know that it's a competitive world, and you have to be better than the next guy. So we heard in the morning, play to win. So we had a long debate on that, whether that was the right context that people should pick it up in. But we leave that to you. And I think I'll dive right into the subject matter, and the topic that we started off with was the challenges to business schools vis-a-vis the industry in the emerging scenario. So I think what I'd like to do is, rather than leaving it at the B school level, let's take it down to the individual level. And for that, what I think we need to understand is that what is the changing scenario? We hear about this so often, things are changing, things have changed, things will change very fast. What does that actually mean? What is the change from the time that, for example, I started out my career and today, which is when you are ready to launch into your careers? So I think the first thing that has happened is, how do I put it? Multiplicity of choices all around. Choices of careers, choices of marketplaces, choices that the organizations have in terms of the talent that they can pick up, the kind of people that they have, the kind of people that they require, the choices that individuals have to work for one organization or the other, and why not for this and why for the other. The choices in terms of products. We grew up in a 2-car scenario, and last month I was trying to buy a car. And finally, I just said that let me just put 4 names in a hat and pick them out and say that, okay, I'll run with this, because there's so little to choose between them. So a lot of things have changed. But what does it mean to you guys? You've grown up in this environment. You know what the internet is. My wife, last week, she was having a conversation with one of her friends, and she said that I heard you can download the internet onto your computer. So that is the age that we were brought up in. We didn't know what computers were, what internet was. So all of this, in effect, means that there is a lot more that the organizations expect out of you in terms of knowledge, in terms of skill, in terms of attitude. they operate in a global environment now. So the Fiats and the ambassadors of the world that we grew up in didn't compete with the other nations. Today, every organization worth its salt is either competing in a global marketplace or the global marketplace has come to India to compete with them. So you can shy away from it, but you can't ignore it for long. The global requirement that organizations have means that the kind of thinking that people have, the kind of thinking that you need to have, has to be of a global nature, at a global level. Even though you might operate within the confines of this country or the boundaries, but you're competing with everyone. And the name that crops up is China. Everyone is competing with China. Whether you're sourcing or you're selling or you're producing, you're competing with China. So there's one angle that has come in, which is the global face of the organization or the expectation of the organization. The second thing that has happened, and I think people are talking a lot about this now, is values, value conformance, conforming to the value structure framework or the likes and dislikes or the culture or the environment or what have you that the organizations have. And that is something that wasn't as big yesterday as it is today. So the global the global mind and the value framework, which is entirely internal. So two ends of the continuum, and that is what people have to grapple with today. It's not an easy task, and organizations, I'll just give you a 2-minute thing on how organizations view the entire employee life cycle. We are trying to build a construct about this at SRF, and we've divided the entire expectation and the things that we need to provide to employees in 4 broad categories. One is membership. Membership is the hygiene factors. Are you paid well enough vis-a-vis the competitor? Small joros and small sorrows and joys in terms of are the buses plying on time? Do you get coffee when you want it? Is the pantry adequately stocked and all of that? Small issues which convert to your wanting to be in that place, and there is no push factor outside the organization. A motivating environment, teamwork, all of that is part of this. The second big ticket item is ownership. How do we build ownership? What is it that we can do as organizations? What do we expect from our employees so that they own the task? Which means that they give it more than what they think is expected out of it. They own it as if it was theirs, so that if they are doing something, they do it with 100% dedication, if not more. I don't think there's anything like 110%. People often keep saying that, but at least 100% is expected. We don't want people to live with us forever. But till the time that you're there, the expectation is that you will own the task and give it all that you have. The third bucket that we talk about is, and we haven't really named it as yet, but it's about contributing. So it's not only about owning, but it's taking your task, your deliverable to a level which contributes more than yesterday. And yesterday could technically just be yesterday and not the last year. The last bit that we talk about is the life saga, which means wealth creation, which means why would people want to be with us for 20 years, 30 years, people that we'd like to continue with us, what will make them be with us for long. So these are the 4 buckets, and I think I'll just sort of use this construct and speak and say certain things around these 4 buckets. The most relevant things, I'm sure, will come from you. So please use this opportunity. Nina and both, I think we agree that the meat will come from the questions that you have. We will try to handle them as best as we can, to the best of our knowledge, our experience. But hopefully there's something at the end of this session that you'll remember and you'll take away and use throughout your lives. So the first bit in terms of the membership is the attracting power. What is it that you can do to become a part of that organization? What is it that the B schools can do? I think the number one thing that always comes to my mind is do something that you are made out to do. Don't try to be someone else. So there are certain skills that are required. For example, if you talk of the immediate context, the context of this institute, there are skills which are required for marketing. There are skills which are required for HR, skills, competencies, attitude, call it what you will, traits. Essentially, what we're talking about is what are you made to do comfortably. There are many people who do things that they're not comfortable with, but they're not happy. And because they're not happy, they're not members, they're not owners, they're not contributors, and there is no wealth that is created. I didn't do anything. People are almost blaming me. Okay. You want me to wait for it to come back? Yeah, no, I understand. State government we can blame for. But do I need to wait or? Okay. Sorry, I got that wrong. Okay. So what is it that people need to become members? Number one is to be what you are. And fortunately for you guys, there are enough tools in the market right now, and I think the B schools should be helping you with that. Don't try to be like someone else. And B schools should not be churning out clones. That is not what the organizations require. So if you think you have the aptitude or the attitude to pick up a certain line, please go ahead and choose only that, because you will not succeed in something for which you are not cut out for. You will not succeed in something for which you're not cut out for. So I think that is the single most big ticket item. The second item is value conformance. Fortunately, most organizations have values which people can't openly go against. So people have a choice of, let's say, 40 or 50 good sounding, nicely worded phrases, and organizations end up picking 4 or 5 or 10 out of those, and they say that these are our values. Why do they do that? Is because they believe probably more strongly in those 4, 5 or 10 than the other 30 that they leave out. And also you can't live with 40 values because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't sink in and people can't do anything about them. So you choose 8. Hypothetically, let's say you choose 8. Now you have to understand what those values are, and you have to make sure that your natural value system, the framework that you have been brought up with or the framework that you believe in, is in consonance with those values. It doesn't make sense for you to get into an organization which does unethical dealings day in and day out, and your success in the organization is dependent on that, and your basic value framework does not allow you to do that. And yet you're forced to do that day in and day out. That, I think, is the biggest injustice that you can do to yourselves. So number one, look at what you are. Number two, look at what the organization is. What is it that the organization expects? The third big ticket item that organizations are today looking for is flexibility in approach. And I think to a certain extent, a variant of that, in terms of being able to adapt to the requirements of the organization and not to a visualization or an image that you have of what you should be once you become a management trainee or an officer or an executive. Because end of the day, while speed and aggression and all of that are talked about and are highly valued, there is no substitute for old-fashioned hard work and sincerity. That is something that I think everyone should believe in. We have people walking into our organization saying, what is my entitlement? Instead of asking, what am I expected to do? The entitlement is, if I go to Pune, what is the kind of hotel that I can stay in? What is the kind of cab that I will get? Do I fly or do I run or do I take the train? These are the first questions that come to people, that people come to us to ask. They don't ask, how is the marketplace? Is it tough? What are the challenges that you have faced? Why have you got me in? What is it that you see in my skill set that you think is important? How can I contribute more? How can I deliver more? These are questions that we practically never hear. If we hear these questions, that person stands out in our memory, in our scheme of things. So attitude in terms of what is it that the organization has hired you for. The organization is hiring you to deliver on a particular task, on a role, and not to provide amenities to you. They happen, by the way. They happen because there is a policy around that. They happen because the organization wants you to live at a certain level of comfort and concentrate on your job, and so on and so forth. So that's the third big ticket item. The fourth item that organizations are now looking at is in terms of is in terms of, sorry, I got a little disoriented. So many people here. Okay. Is in terms of politicking. Now, there is a misconception going around that people who are worldly wise, within quotes, and I use that in a negative sense, people who are able to juggle their way around, people who are able to make ends meet in a negative manner, people who can do this and that and psychophancy and all of that, gain more. They don't, because organizations see through that. One of the values that we were talking about, most organizations hold, is that there is no politicking. And why is that so? Because the organizations believe that the more energy you have for the external world, the lesser you will use it inside. So all the energy, if you're using just to compete with others within the organization, and I think we had a conversation about that in the first half as well, is that unless you are a team player, sorry if I'm taking something away from yours, okay, unless you're a team player, there is no place for you in the organization. There are very few roles in the organization that don't require you to be a team player. And those roles are not the MBA kind of roles. Those roles are the scientific technologist and the people who sit in labs and do their stuff and come out with miracles and contribute to the organization in that sense. So that's a totally different ball game, and that's something that is not expected from a majority of people, because everyone can't invent and create and get patents. So the fourth, I think this is the fourth one, is your ability to be a team player, to be able to win in spite of the fact that you're at some level competing with the others, and win as a team, as an organization, which is what I was saying. The energy that you have to compete in the marketplace is what counts in the corporate world today. And the last thing that I'd like to mention before I hand it over to Nina is the ability to be, so let me rephrase that. The opportunity that presents itself for you people to deliver to the potential that you have, looking at whatever else exists in the environment. The environment could be internal, the environment could be external. So the potential realization, what is it that you do to continuously develop yourself? What is it that you do to be updated about what's happening in the economy, what's happening in your marketplace, what's happening in your organization? So if you're in marketing, you should know exactly what is happening in production, what are the drawbacks that we have, what are the constraints that we have, and so on and so forth. So without that deep knowledge of your organization, there is no way that you can succeed in any role. You take your IT role, you take your HR role, you take your marketing role, any support function, even production for that matter, unless you're updated, unless you keep abreast of what's happening in the external world, there is no way that you're going to succeed to a level that is fit for your potential. You might be able to manage, and organizations keep talking about this backbone and the solid citizens and all of that. But those are just the people that keep the organization running at the level at which it is right now. What organizations are now looking forward to is people who will take the organization to the next level. So while those people are valued and they're, we'd like them to be there, the people who will really outshine all others are the people who can make that little bit extra, bring that little bit extra to the table, make that little bit extra contribution, and enable the organization to keep moving forward, not just stand still, move forward in a fiercely competitive world out there. So I think these were my quick thoughts. As I said, happy to take questions, and please ask whatever comes to your mind, whatever you think is going to be useful. It may or may not be connected to the things that I've said. Anything that you want to know, anything that you think can help, we'll be happy to take those questions and hopefully answer them to your satisfaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We are enlightened to have you here.